Hey there, curious minds. Welcome to a deep dive into the human psyche, guided by the titans of ancient Greece. Today, we're not just looking at history, we're looking into a mirror, a 2,000-year-old looking glass where I promise you'll see yourselves reflected in ways you never imagined. I want you to ask yourselves a simple yet profoundly important question. When faced with a crisis, an insult, or a game-changing challenge, what takes over? Is it volcanic rage demanding immediate, uncompromising action? Or is it patient cunning? The mind that calculates, waits, and subtly manipulates the chessboard to its advantage. This choice, this duality, is nothing new. In fact, it's the hidden engine driving the two most foundational works of Western civilization. Today, we're going to unlock the secret code behind Achilles and Odysseus and reveal how their legendary clash still defines who we are, even in the 21st century. Before we dive in, I wanted to quickly mention the visuals you're seeing. To bring this story to life, I've used AI tools to generate these images. So think of them as a canvas, a way to illustrate the ideas and the ancient atmosphere I'm trying to convey. They're not always exact or literal representations, but rather a visual companion to help your imagination take flight alongside mine. I truly hope you enjoy them. First up, let's meet the man of fury himself, Achilles. Don't just think of him as an invincible warrior. See him as the embodiment of raw emotion, of unfiltered impulse. He's the archetype of the genius who lives in the absolute present, where every fleeting second is an eternity of feeling. When King Agamemnon seizes his war prize, his concubine Briseis, Achilles doesn't engage in political maneuvering. He doesn't negotiate. His pride, his honor, his time, as the Greeks would say, has been mortally wounded. His reaction? To withdraw from the war, even knowing that without him, his comrades will fall by the thousands. This is crucial to understanding him. His rage isn't just anger, it's an existential declaration. He'd rather watch his own army burn than concede an inch of what he deems his worth. It's an integrity so unyielding it becomes destructive. It's the power of the absolute no, taken to its most devastating conclusions. Classical literature scholars, like those at prestigious institutions such as Cambridge University, highlight that the Iliad doesn't begin with the Trojan War itself, but with Achilles' wrath. The true theme is how one man's emotions can reshape the destiny of nations. It's a profound lesson on the power and peril of unchecked feelings. Think about it in modern terms. It's the artist who smashes their masterpiece over a scathing critique. It's the entrepreneur who liquidates their entire company over a bitter disagreement with a partner. It's that part of us that, when wounded, prefers annihilation to humiliation. A terrifying force, yes, but sometimes a necessary one to defend our very essence. Achilles' choice, presented by his goddess mother Thetis, was stark. He could live a long, happy, anonymous life at home, or he could go to Troy, achieve immortal glory, and die young. He chose glory. He chose intensity over longevity. He chose to burn bright as a supernova rather than fade as a distant star. This yearning for transcendence, for his name to echo through eternity, is Achilles' true driving force. His rage is the guardian of that legacy. Every slight, every insult is a direct assault on his immortality. That's why his reaction is so disproportionate. He's not just defending a prize, he's defending his very place in history. Now, in the other corner of our intellectual ring, we have a completely different kind of man, Odysseus, the protagonist of the Odyssey. If Achilles is the brute force of a charging lion, Odysseus is the patient cunning of a spider meticulously spinning its web. His battlefield isn't the plains of Troy, it's the minds of his enemies. The word that defines Odysseus is metis, a Greek term meaning a blend of wisdom, cunning, and deception. It's practical intelligence, the ability to adapt, to lie, to transform oneself for survival. Odysseus is the master of disguise, the man of 1,000 faces, the one who always has a plan up his sleeve. Remember the Trojan horse? While Achilles and the other heroes battled with brute force for 10 fruitless years, it was Odysseus's mind that ultimately brought down those impenetrable walls. Not with a spear, but with an idea rooted in deception, in exploiting the enemy's psychology. Pure strategy at its finest. His journey home, the Odyssey, is a relentless series of trials where brute strength is utterly useless. Against the Cyclops Polyphemus, he couldn't win by force. So he used his mind. He told the Cyclops his name was Nobody. When he blinded him and Polyphemus screamed for help, crying, "Nobody has hurt me," the other Cyclops ignored him completely. It's sheer brilliance. Odysseus endures humiliations that Achilles would never, ever have tolerated. He disguises himself as a beggar to infiltrate his own palace, stoically bearing the insults of the arrogant suitors who plague his wife. Why? Because his ultimate goal is far greater than his personal pride. His aim is to reclaim his home, his family, his kingdom, and for that, any means justifies the end. Unlike Achilles, who lives in the explosive present, Odysseus lives for the future. Every action is a calculated move in a long, elaborate chess game. He endures the pain of today for the greater reward of tomorrow. He's the archetype of the strategist, the politician, the ultimate survivor who understands that to win the war, sometimes you have to gracefully lose a battle. Studies in leadership psychology, like those frequently featured in prestigious journals such as the Harvard Business Review, often analyze these very archetypes. The Achilles leader inspires with their raw passion and charisma, but can be highly volatile. The Odysseus leader might be less glamorous, but their long-term vision and unwavering resilience typically build more enduring empires. So here we have two heroes, two compelling models of masculinity and success: fury versus cunning, passion versus reason, heart versus head. The Iliad and the Odyssey, far more than mere poems, are essentially the instruction manual for this fundamental duality that resides within all of us. But here's where the story truly gets interesting. Because the traditional reading, the one we were taught in school, is a gross oversimplification. They present both figures as unblemished role models, as heroes without nuance. And that, my friends, is a dangerous untruth. Let's embark on a critical reevaluation. Let's re-examine Achilles. Is his fury genuinely an act of honor? Or is it the colossal tantrum of a narcissistic wunderkind who simply can't bear to have his favorite toy taken away? His decision to withdraw from battle leads to the deaths of thousands of his friends, including his beloved Patroclus. His personal honor comes at a staggering cost, a sea of blood. When he finally returns to battle, it's not for his army or the Greek cause. He returns solely for personal revenge after Patroclus' death. His return unleashes an explosion of violence so savage that he slaughters so many Trojans, the river scamander chokes on their blood, and rebels against him. This isn't heroism, it's a brutal massacre. Contemporary philosophers like Simone Weil, in her seminal essay, The Iliad, or the Poem of Force, argue that the poem's true protagonist isn't Achilles at all, but force itself. The raw, dehumanizing force that turns men into mere objects, into corpses. Achilles isn't a hero-wielding force, he is its first and greatest victim. His rage dehumanizes him. It transforms him into a relentless killing machine. The desecration of Hector's corpse, dragging it ignominiously around Troy, that's not the act of a hero, it's a horrific war crime. The Iliad powerfully demonstrates that uncontrolled emotion, even when cloaked in the guise of honor, ultimately turns us into monsters. The Achilles archetype in the modern world can be seen as toxic masculinity in its most distilled form. It's the inability to process emotional pain without resorting to violence, the pervasive idea that vulnerability is a weakness, and that aggression is the sole acceptable response to offense. It's a gilded cage indeed. Now let's examine the cunning Odysseus through the very same critical lens. We celebrate him as the grand strategist, but what is cunning without a moral anchor? It's simply manipulation. Odysseus is frankly a pathological liar. He lies to his enemies, his hosts, his wife, his father. His very identity is fluid, constantly adapted for maximum deception. Consider his crew. Every single one of them perishes on the arduous journey home. How many of those deaths were direct consequences of Odysseus's risky, self-serving decisions? He survives, yes, but at a horrifying cost to those who place their trust in him. He's like the CEO who saves the company, but only by laying off the entire workforce. His return to Ithaca is anything but a happy, peaceful ending. It's a bloody massacre. He slaughters all the suitors, over 100 men who were unarmed and feasting in his hall. Then he hangs the 12 maidservants who had slept with them. No trial, no mercy, no quarter given. Just cold, calculated, and utterly ruthless violence. Viewed from a modern perspective, Odysseus could very well be the archetype of the functional psychopath. Charming, intelligent, capable of mimicking emotions but utterly devoid of true empathy. Someone who views people as mere pawns on his personal chessboard. Tools to be used and discarded on his relentless path to success. So what are we left with? A hero of fury who devolves into a destructive monster, and a hero of intelligence who transforms into a ruthless manipulator. Tradition sold us two idealized figures, but a deeper analysis reveals two distinct paths towards dehumanization. The picture is far bleaker than it initially appears. This is where the true genius of these poems lies. They aren't giving us heroes to blindly imitate. They're presenting us with a profound dilemma. They're revealing the dangerous extremes of two of the most potent forces that define us. Passion and reason, when thrown out of balance, are equally destructive. Greek culture, particularly the philosophy that emerged later with Plato and Aristotle, was absolutely obsessed with the concept of the golden mean, the middle path, avoiding extremes. These poems can be read as the grand overarching argument for precisely that balance. They are cautionary tales on an epic monumental scale. We do need Achilles' passion. Without it, there's no art, no love, no courage to stand up for what's right. It's the engine that propels us to seek greatness and refuse to settle for mediocrity. A life without even a spark of Achilles' fire is a life lived in muted shades of gray. But that passion needs to be guided, to be channeled effectively. And for that, we absolutely need Odysseus's intelligence, the ability to step back, to dispassionately analyze a situation, to plan for the long term, and to control our impulses for the sake of a greater good. Without Odysseus's cunning, Achilles' passion merely burns itself out, consuming everything in its path. The true hero, perhaps, is neither Achilles nor Odysseus. The true hero would be a hybrid, someone with Achilles' lion heart, but with Odysseus's foxy intellect. Someone who feels righteous fury in the face of injustice, but then employs reason to combat it in the most effective way possible. This internal conflict is, in essence, the struggle of civilization itself. How do we balance the rights and fiery passions of the individual, epitomized by Achilles, with the pressing needs and stability of the community, which Odysseus, as king, strives to restore? It's the eternal tug-of-war between personal freedom and social order. Think about great social movements. They often ignite with Achilles' fury, with a resounding no to an injustice. But to truly succeed, they require Odysseus' strategy, the organization, the meticulous planning, and sometimes the difficult compromises. Fury without cunning is a mere riot. Cunning without fury is just passive conformism. Even in our daily lives, this battle is constantly being waged. The impulsive urge to fire off a furious reply to an offensive work email, channeling your inner Achilles, or the conscious decision to breathe, think like Odysseus, and craft a strategic response that achieves your objective without burning any bridges. It's a choice we make countless times a day. Modern neuroscience offers us a fascinating map for this internal struggle. Daniel Kahneman, the renowned psychologist and economist, speaks of the brain's System 1 and System 2. System 1 is fast, intuitive, emotional, our inner Achilles. System 2 is slow, deliberate, logical, our inner Odysseus. The key to true maturity lies in knowing when to deploy each system. The problem is, the modern world, with its relentless social media feeds and 24-hour news cycle, is practically designed to constantly activate our inner Achilles. Outrage, rage bait, instant gratification, everything pushes us to react without thinking, to dwell in the perpetual fury of the moment. Cultivating our inner Odysseus, that patience, long-term thinking, and strategic calm, is harder than ever before. It demands conscious effort. It requires tuning out the incessant noise, reading deeply, and reflecting thoughtfully. It requires choosing to be the strategist when everything around us screams for us to be the furious, impulsive warrior. What's truly fascinating is that the Greeks themselves already grasped this inherent tension. Not just in their literature, but their entire mythology is brimming with it. You have Ares, the god of brutal, chaotic warfare, who is essentially Achilles' divinized fury. And then you have Athena, the goddess of wisdom and strategic warfare, the divine mentor of Odysseus. It's no coincidence that the Greeks, especially the Athenians, revered Athena above Ares. They understood implicitly that brute force devoid of wisdom leads inevitably to ruin, whereas wisdom can channel that force to achieve victory and build a lasting civilization. It was a foundational cultural choice. Thus, the Homeric poems aren't merely the genesis of Western literature, they are the foundational diagnostic of the human condition. They whisper to us, within you dwells a god of war and a goddess of wisdom. Your life's narrative will be the direct outcome of whom you nourish more and whose counsel you heed in decisive moments. The next time you feel that searing surge of anger, that Achilles' fury, recognize it, name it. Understand its raw power and its inherent danger. It's a part of you, a potent tool, but do not let it take the helm. It's the fire of the forge, not the blacksmith's guiding hand that shapes the metal. And the next time you find yourselves calculating, planning, perhaps even being a touch manipulative, ask your inner Odysseus, does the end truly justify the means? Ask him about the crew, about those who might be hurt or left behind on your long journey toward your personal Ithaca. The immortal beauty of Greek epic is that it offers no easy answers. It doesn't simply say be Odysseus or be Achilles. Instead, it lays out both narratives with all their glory and all their misery, and leaves us, the audience, with the profound task of navigating between those two powerful poles, of finding our own unique equilibrium. In an age of extreme polarization, where we're constantly pressured to pick a side, to be on one team or the other, the message of the ancient Greeks is more relevant than ever. True wisdom isn't found in the extremes. It resides in the tension, in the synthesis, in the nuanced ability to be both a passionate warrior and a patient strategist simultaneously. Ultimately, the hero's journey isn't a trek to Troy or a voyage to Ithaca. The true journey is an inward one. It's the personal odyssey of integrating our inner Achilles and our inner Odysseus, It's about learning to be righteously angry about the things that truly matter, and cunning enough to actually change them without destroying ourselves or the world in the process. Achilles' rage is fundamentally a reaction. It's an external event that triggers an internal response. At its root, it's passive. It's being a victim of your own overwhelming emotions. They control him. He doesn't choose his fury. He merely suffers it and unleashes it upon the world around him, utterly disregarding the consequences. In stark contrast, Odysseus' cunning is decidedly proactive. It's the ability to observe the world not as a series of personal affronts, but as a complex system of variables that can be skillfully manipulated. He isn't controlled by the situation, he actively seeks to control it. It's the profound shift from mere reaction to deliberate, calculated action. This shift in perspective is absolutely fundamental. Achilles views the world entirely through the lens of his own wounded honor. Everything that happens is about him. Odysseus, however, deliberately removes himself from the equation. He literally becomes nobody. By doing so, he can view the problem with an objective clarity that Achilles could never possibly attain. Think about the episode with the sirens. Achilles probably would have plunged into the sea to battle them head-on, dying in the attempt. Odysseus, in contrast, acknowledges human weakness. He knows he can't resist their song. So he devises a plan, a kind of ancient biohack. He plugs his crew's ears with wax and has himself tied to the mast. This is an incredible lesson. Odysseus doesn't rely on brute willpower alone. He relies on his system. He understands his own human limits and plans around them. It's the recognition of one's own fallibility as arguably the greatest act of intelligence. It's knowing that the best way to overcome a temptation isn't to fight it directly, but to strategically bypass it altogether. Achilles embodies the fantasy of unlimited power, the idea that if you're strong enough, you can simply bend the world to your will. Odysseus, conversely, embodies the reality of limited power, the acceptance that the world is far greater than yourself, and that the only way to navigate it is with intelligence, humility, and sometimes literally tying yourself to the mast. Let's consider their relationship with the gods. The gods constantly intervene to rescue Achilles in battle, to augment his strength. He is in many ways an instrument of divine power. Odysseus, however, often finds the gods actively working against him, most notably Poseidon. And yet with sheer ingenuity, he survives. He even at times seems to defy fate itself. This marks a profound evolution in human thought. The Iliad portrays a world where men are mere pawns of divine and emotional forces beyond their control. The Odyssey, conversely, represents the nascent birth of the modern individual, the man who, through his own reason and will, can forge his own path, even in defiance of gods and fate. However, this hard-won autonomy comes at a steep price: loneliness. Achilles, for all his rage, is surrounded by those who love him, like Patroclus. He's embedded in a fiercely loyal community. Odysseus, by the end of his epic journey, stands utterly alone. His cunning and inherent distrust have effectively isolated him. This is the tragic cost of unchecked astuteness. Achilles' community, his band of elite warriors, the Myrmidons, fight with a fierce loyalty born of shared, passionate emotion. Odysseus' crew, in contrast, follows him out of grim necessity or the promise of spoils. His leadership is purely transactional, devoid of true emotional connection. That's why in the end he's left with no one by his side. This is the ultimate critique of reason divorced from heart. It might lead you home, it might help you reclaim your kingdom, but you may find that when you finally arrive, there's no one left to share the victory with. Odysseus' journey is undeniably a triumph of strategy, but it's also a profound tragedy of lost human connection. And the ultimate critique of passion untempered by reason is the Iliad itself. The Trojan War ends not because of Achilles' rage, which only brings further death and destruction, but because of Odysseus' brilliant cunning. Passion can win skirmishes, but it's intelligence that ultimately wins the war. A crucial fact we too often overlook. So how do we apply this ancient code to our modern lives? It's not about choosing one or the other, it's about diagnosing. In any given situation, ask yourself, am I operating from my Achilles mode or my Odysseus mode? Simply putting a name to the powerful force driving you can give you incredible control over it. When you feel that righteous indignation consuming you in an online discussion, pause and say, this is my Achilles. And then ask yourself, what would my Odysseus do right now? Perhaps the wisest answer isn't to reply in kind, but to mute the conversation, step away, and redirect that energy into something far more productive. That, my friends, is an act of profound self-governance. When you're meticulously planning a long-term project and feel tempted to take unethical shortcuts, pause and say, okay, this is my Odysseus. And then ask yourself, what would my Achilles say about the honor, the integrity of this decision? Am I sacrificing my true self for a mere objective? That's your internal moral compass guiding you. The Greeks didn't hand us a map with a marked destination. They gave us a compass with two powerful magnetic poles. Our task isn't to reach one pole over the other, but to master the dynamic tension between both, to navigate our own unique life's journey. True wisdom lies in keeping that compass needle in constant dynamic equilibrium. The Iliad is the poem of youth, of grand passions, of all or nothing stakes. It's the surging impulse of adolescence and early adulthood. The Odyssey, however, is the poem of true adulthood, of resilience, of difficult compromises, of the long, arduous, and often exhausting journey back to one's true self after life's relentless battles. Perhaps we all begin as Achilles in the youth of our lives, fervently believing that the sheer intensity of our feelings is the sole measure of truth. But life, with its inevitable blows, its cyclopes, and its raging storms, invariably forces us to evolve into Odysseus in order to simply survive, and with luck, find our way home. The ultimate goal isn't to remain as Odysseus, the cynical and solitary survivor. Perhaps the true aim is to leverage Odysseus's hard-earned wisdom so that, at life's end, we can regain the capacity to feel with Achilles' pure intensity, but without his destructive toxicity. A passion informed by profound wisdom. A truly wise heart. This interpretation isn't just an intellectual exercise, it's a powerful therapeutic tool. Recognizing whether we're caught in an Achilles script, reacting impulsively with anger to everything, or an Odysseus script, over-analyzing and manipulating every situation, can be the crucial first step to freeing ourselves from destructive patterns. Literature at its absolute finest isn't mere entertainment. It's truly a technology of the soul. These epic poems are like ancient software programs, codes that, once installed in our minds, empower us to understand ourselves and navigate the world with far greater depth and effectiveness. They are a priceless legacy spanning 2.5 millennia. Think about education. We often teach these stories as simple adventure tales, completely overlooking the profound psychology embedded within them. Imagine if we taught young people to identify their inner Achilles and Odysseus, providing them with a language to truly understand and articulate their own contradictory impulses. This knowledge bestows immense power upon us. The power not to be slaves to our immediate knee-jerk reactions. The power to understand that true strategy isn't coldness, but a profound form of long-term care and love. And that genuine honor isn't found in vengeful acts, but in self-control and the unwavering protection of our community. The next time you read a news story, watch a film, or analyze a political leader, try applying this filter. Is this person operating as an Achilles or as an Odysseus? Are their actions born from a raw, narcissistic wound, or from a calculated, long-term strategic play? You'll start seeing these two fundamental archetypes everywhere, because ultimately the Iliad and the Odyssey aren't really about Greeks and Trojans. They're not about gods and monsters. They're about us, about the inner battlefield and the labyrinth that each of us carries within. They are the epic poem of our own internal wars and our own long, winding journey home. Fury and cunning are not inherently good or bad. They are merely tools. They are raw energies. Like fire, they can warm a home or utterly incinerate a city. True wisdom, true heroism lies in how we wield them. It's in the conscious choice of which inner voice to amplify in any given moment. Achilles teaches us that a life devoid of passion is barely worth living, yet unchecked passion leads to utter destruction. Odysseus teaches us that intelligence is the crucial key to survival, yet survival without genuine human connection can be a hollow victory. They serve as two powerful warnings, two timeless lessons. The grand secret, the very climax of this revelation, is that the question, "Are you Achilles or are you Odysseus?" is fundamentally flawed. It's not an either or choice, it's a spectrum. All of us are a unique blend of both, and our position on that spectrum shifts and evolves every single day with every decision we make. The true mastery of life, according to the hidden code of the ancient Greeks, isn't about choosing one archetype over the other. It's about learning to dance between the two, knowing when to unleash righteous fury and when to meticulously weave a patient web, when to boldly proclaim your truth to the world and when to disguise yourself as a beggar, patiently observing and waiting for the opportune moment. The immortal legacy of Greek epic isn't just a collection of thrilling adventure stories, it's a profound psychological manual. A timeless map for the soul that remains as uncannily accurate today as it was millennia ago. It serves as a powerful reminder that our most modern problems are, in reality, humanity's most ancient struggles. So the next time you face a significant challenge, remember these two titans. Invoke Achilles' raw strength and blazing passion, but channel it with Odysseus' patient cunning and strategic foresight. Because in the harmonious union of these two opposing powers lies not only victory, but profound wisdom. This dynamic balance is precisely what later philosophers would come to call virtue. It's not the absence of passion, but passion ordered and refined by reason. It's not the absence of strategy, but strategy guided by an honorable purpose. It is the very path of the complete hero, of the fully integrated human being. The Homeric poems are immortal not because their heroes are perfect, but precisely because they are so deeply flawed. Their failures are as monumental as their triumphs. And in those imperfections, in those tragedies, we find ourselves powerfully reflected. And from them, we glean the most profound lessons. Achilles had to suffer the profound loss of Patroclus for his rage to transform, however fleetingly, into something more. Odysseus had to lose his entire crew to truly learn the devastating price of his own relentless cunning. Growth, the Greeks impart, often comes wrapped in the stark language of loss and profound pain. Ultimately, Achilles' fury represents the raw, untamed energy of life, its explosive and creative power. Odysseus' cunning is the guiding consciousness, the intelligence that shapes and directs that immense energy. We desperately need both. Energy without consciousness is a destructive cancer. Consciousness without energy is impotent paralysis. The immortal power of Greek epic resides in this simple, yet profoundly resonant truth. They presented us with the very source code of our own humanity, the two core operating systems running in our minds: the warrior and the strategist, the lover and the survivor, the god and the man. And they left us with the noblest task of all, indeed the work of a lifetime: to learn to be the conductor of that inner orchestra, to know when to swell the violins of passion and when to cue the measured brass of strategy, ultimately crafting the magnificent symphony of a life truly well lived. So the question isn't who you are, but who you choose to be in this precise moment. What does this specific situation demand? The brutal, unyielding honesty of a warrior or the diplomatic, long-sighted patience of a king? The right answer shifts every single day. And true wisdom is the capacity to even ask that question in the first place. In essence, fury and cunning, Achilles and Odysseus, aren't just characters in ancient texts. They are two fundamental living forces that dwell deep within us. To truly understand their light and their shadow is to understand ourselves. They are the secret code that, once deciphered, hands us the very keys to unlocking our own boundless potential. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive and profound analysis. I truly hope it's offered you a fresh perspective on these timeless stories and, even more importantly, on yourselves. It has been a genuine honor to explore these powerful ideas with such a curious and intelligent community. Now it's your turn. Right now, in this season of your life, which voice resonates more strongly within you? The fiery rage of Achilles or the patient cunning of Odysseus? Share your thoughts and reflections in the comments below. And if you enjoy this kind of content that blends ancient literature with modern self-discovery, please subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next journey.